thing where Michael was amazing, even when it was really bad, you know, Michael really worked with Todd to hold the whole thing together, amazing character there. But the thing about Michael is, Vettel's a bloody good driver, but Michael was another level. Lewis is a bloody good driver, but Michael was another level. And everybody knew Michael was another level. Like you say today, who's the best, Vettel, Alonso, or Hamilton? And it's purely down to your personal taste, probably. In my day, as soon as Senna was dead, there was Michael, and until Alonso kind of came up, where Michael was obviously getting older, and Alonso was the young, hungry wolf. Up until that very moment, no one ever questioned that it was ever Michael's fault, because it was never Michael's fault, because no one drove a car as well as Michael Schumacher drove a car. So, and I think that's what helped that whole Ferrari situation back then, because they never pointed the finger at Michael. Yeah. Rightly so, because it was not his fault. I knew I wasn't as good as Michael. I watched Michael, and I could see Michael could do things in the car that I couldn't do. Whenever we were teammates, I could see he was doing things that I couldn't do. When I watched him from outside the car, I could see he could do stuff that nobody else could do. And then I think in my era, there was probably Mika that was slightly better than the rest of us, and then Michael was better than him.
Hi guys, this is the Casual Fan. Ever since Max Verstappen has gotten hold of a car with which he can challenge for a title, there has been no looking back. Last season he won his first Formula 1 championship, and even this season, the way things are shaping up, Max Verstappen is the runaway favorite to win the title. But it's not his position in the championship right now that prompted this chain of thought. It is Max Verstappen's overall body of work that has made me think whether Max Verstappen might just be the true successor of Michael Schumacher's throne as the undisputed best driver of this generation. In Formula 1, more often than not, we've had a towering figure standing above the rest of the grid through the generations. From 1994 to 2004, it was Michael Schumacher who was pretty much the best driver on the grid. Before him, Formula 1 had Ayrton Senna, who had taken the crown from Alain Prost. Before Prost, it was a combination of Niki Lauda, Nelson Piquet, and, well, the list goes on. F1 always had that one undisputed benchmark for the entire grid. Ever since Michael Schumacher retired, that throne has been somewhat left vacant for all these years. With Max Verstappen rising to prominence in the way that he has, there might be a new heir to Michael Schumacher's throne in Formula 1. Now, before we cut to the chase and talk about how Max Verstappen could be the heir to Michael Schumacher's throne, there is this big elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. Michael Schumacher effectively retired at the end of the 2006 season. Sure, he came back for that stint with Mercedes, but he was past his prime by then. And to be fair, he didn't put as much effort as he did in his first career. In the last 16 years, from 2006 to 2022, there has not been a single driver that rose above everyone else to be considered the best driver on the grid. Now let me clarify, this does not mean that in these 16 years there haven't been any good drivers. Contrary to that, there have been some excellent talents in this period. A few of them will even go down as some of the greatest to ever do it. Yet, has there been a single driver that has stood out as the ultimate benchmark over everyone else? The answer is no. That's just not the case. In the last 16 years, we can probably narrow it down to 3 drivers that had a claim at various points to be the undisputed best driver on the grid. First of all, it's a testament to Fernando Alonso's talent that he's still racing in Formula 1. Alonso was considered the successor to Michael Schumacher's throne in 2005 and 2006 when he became a 2-time world champion and even beat the German in 2006 in the process. When the 2007 season had started, Fernando Alonso was considered to be the gold standard of racing in Formula 1. Many thought that Alonso would take over in Formula 1 as the next benchmark for a long time. Alonso's 2007 season put paid to those thoughts and expectations as he imploded at McLaren and lost to Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Raikkonen in the championship. That was 2007. Since then, it's been 15 years and Alonso has been twice close to winning another title. Once in 2010 and once in 2012, but missed out on both occasions. The problem for Alonso in all these years since he voluntarily left Ferrari in 2014 has been his inability to be a part of a race-winning team. Because of this, he has not been competing at the sharp end of the grid against the best talents for almost a decade now. He has not won a race since 2013, and somewhere down the line, whether it is luck, whether it is politics, or whether it is just Alonso not being a good team player, it has worked massively against him. In terms of quality, it's fair to say that Alonso is still driving at a very high level. But when you're not fighting at the front for wins, podiums and titles, it's hard to consider you the undisputed best driver of your generation. Now Sebastian Vettel's career could be broadly divided into two halves. The first was from his debut in 2007 to the end of 2013 season when he hit his peak and was arguably the best driver on the grid. As soon as F1 bid farewell to the V8 engines, things changed. The turbo hybrid era was not kind to Vettel as after a bad first year with Red Bull, he decided to emulate Michael Schumacher and win a world championship with Ferrari. Now it is well documented that this did not happen, as Vettel ultimately left Ferrari without a title to his name and a couple of seasons where he got outperformed by Lewis Hamilton. At the end of the 2013 season, Sebastian Vettel had set the foundation for a rather successful career in Formula 1. If he had been successful in maintaining that momentum, he would have been the rightful heir to Michael Schumacher's throne. But as it turned out, the Ferrari chapter of his career was an utter disaster, and as a result, Vettel quite emphatically fell out of contention of being the best driver of his generation. Now considering the number of fans that Lewis Hamilton has, this one is going to infuriate quite a few people. Many Formula 1 pundits and fans do consider Lewis Hamilton the greatest driver of all time, and even the best driver in the last few years. Why? Well, if you look at it purely based on statistics, Lewis Hamilton is the most successful driver in the history of the sport. There's no one who has won more races, there's no one that has more pole position, and it's only Michael Schumacher that has the same number of titles that Lewis Hamilton has. One of the biggest reasons why Lewis Hamilton is not the true successor of Michael Schumacher is the fact that he gained prominence as the best driver on the grid only after he got his hands on the dominant Mercedes. Until the 2014 season, in terms of the pecking order, Lewis Hamilton was not considered the best driver on the grid. It was either a toss-up between Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel. A large chunk of Lewis Hamilton's success and his popularity has coincided with him having a significant car advantage over all of his competitors. And because of that, even though Lewis gets a lot of accolades and is the most successful driver in the history of Formula 1, he's just not been the ultimate benchmark throughout his career. And because of this, neither of Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel has stood out to be considered the best driver of this generation. Now I'm stressing on the word driver because statistically Lewis takes the cake, but it's not about statistics. Whenever one of these drivers has had a competitive machinery, the balance has tilted from one driver to another during the last 15 years. Now this was something that even Eddie Irvine had alluded to earlier when he said that in the era after Michael Schumacher, based on personal choice and liking, you can pick anyone out of Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel. By the end of the 2020 Formula 1 season, where Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton had dominated and won the championship, Max Verstappen had shown enough speed and consistency to be considered a threat when he finally got his hands on a competitive machinery. Now, as we all remember, the 2021 Formula 1 season was the one where Max Verstappen had the car to compete with Lewis Hamilton. And what we got was a season for the ages. While there are certainly many that feel Lewis Hamilton was wronged in the last race, and yes, without a doubt, the way Michael Massey handled that situation was far from ideal. But if we are fair, Max Verstappen was the better driver that season by some distance. He made lesser mistakes, he was the more consistent driver, and he even had a rather unlucky streak over the season. Max Verstappen was voted the best driver of the season by both the drivers and the teams present on the grid. Now, when a driver has to rise to the top, one of the key check boxes that need to be ticked off is that you take the crown of the biggest benchmark in Formula 1 at the time. The Lewis Hamilton Mercedes combo was just that, and as it turned out, Max Verstappen passed the test with flying colors. Since claiming the crown from Lewis Hamilton last season, Max Verstappen has not looked back at all. He is still as hungry, he is still as motivated, and his results show that he is not looking to take the step off the pedal any soon. Now let's keep that aside for a second and try to answer one important question. Is Max Verstappen the best driver on the grid right now? To answer this question, let's take a look at the other top tier drivers that could have a claim to being the best driver on the grid. Being the most successful driver in the history of Formula 1 does come with a lot of acclaim. Lewis Hamilton has been one of the best drivers in the history of the sport. He still belongs to the elites of the world. But if we look at the last 2 seasons, Lewis Hamilton was not the best driver on the grid in 2021. Max Verstappen was. And this season has not been the best either, as George Russell, Hamilton's teammate, has been very impressive to say the least. It's fair to say that Lewis Hamilton not only lost the title to Max Verstappen, but he's also lost the claim of being the best driver on the grid. Can he reclaim that? Sure he can, but for that, we will need him to bring back the magic he showed during the early years of the turbo hybrid era. Now Charles Leclerc has shown this season that he can take on Max Verstappen and even beat him in a similarly paced car. The early season wins from the Ferrari driver were no joke, and it might even be fair to say that this season, over 1 lap, Charles Leclerc is probably the fastest qualifier. But the thing is, when we talk about Max Verstappen, we not only talk about him being the fastest driver out there. Max Verstappen is not just one of the fastest driver on the grid. He does not make mistakes. He's consistent, and to add to this, what makes his game well-rounded is his ability to be exceptional in wet weather. Compare that to Charles Leclerc. The Ferrari driver matches up very well against Max Verstappen, but Leclerc is still not the overall package that the Red Bull driver is. There are still small mistakes here and there that Leclerc makes, and in the wet weather conditions, Verstappen has arguably a better track record with multiple wins to his name. Now talking about the young guns, both Lando Norris and George Russell have been mighty impressive in the last 2 seasons. Lando was splendid with his first pole position and multiple podiums, while George scored a P2 with Williams and has been outscoring Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes this season. Both have been very impressive without a doubt, but are they better than Max Verstappen? To be fair, they are still unproven and need more time to fully establish themselves on the grid and even in the sport. Could they turn out to be better than Max Verstappen? Maybe, who knows? But for now, I guess we'll have to say that Max is probably performing at a higher level than both of them. Now, after comparing Max to some of the top tier talent on the grid right now, it brings us to the conclusion that at the moment, Max does not have an equal on the Formula 1 grid and should be considered the best driver in Formula 1 at the moment. Max Verstappen is the best driver on the grid. To add to this, he was able to beat Lewis Hamilton, the previous benchmark, and finally, he is currently the reigning world champion. Since Michael Schumacher's first retirement in 2006, Formula 1 has not had an undisputed best driver of a generation. It was always a tussle between Alonso, Hamilton and Vettel. But it does appear that with Max Verstappen's triumph over Lewis Hamilton last season, he has proved that he is the rightful heir to Michael Schumacher's crown. So these were my views. What do you guys think? Do let me know in the comment section. Please like, share and subscribe. And do share your views on whether you think Max Verstappen is the rightful heir to Michael Schumacher's throne.